All right. Hi. All right. Some more videos. Uh, Previous video was just me kind of reflecting on how it all started through something that inspired me. Oh, you guys watched it? Did you? Oh, come on. Fine. You're watching today's video at least. The woodworking process and the products with a reflection on the platform, the website, and its build process. So I'm building a platform through a website. Should have said that here. The platform. Once you start articulating yourself and seeing kind of like the effects it has on you and your approach on things and how everything responds to it, and I'm glad, like, because I'm reading this a couple of months later and I'm like, okay, maybe I like could have written this differently or could have paused in between, but I was writing this in a car while it was driving like this because the roads here are mountain roads, so they're all like kind of like it's always moving to the left or to the right. But so the woodworking process is basically when I went to actually build this table with my father. And end products is basically, so the woodworking process and end products with a reflection on the platform I'm building and on the website and its build process. So the reason I say that is because like my dad's been using basically working on doing woodwork for the past 3 years. And when I went there and I was actually talking to him and I was like, we're gonna build a table. He's like, yes. And he looks at me, he goes like, how do you want to do it? And I'm like, I have no fucking idea. And it was funny because like he literally was like, so neither do I. And I was like, what the fuck's been going on over the past 3 years? Because in my head, experience basically regulates as I don't, how does it regulate? Had completely forgotten because like I remember that day was like impactful enough for me to completely get out of my system. But ultimately, I figured he's going to sit and we're going to take papers and start planning and writing things down, which we did eventually. But at first was like I picked the design. I was like, this is the design, and he started looking at me. Okay, and he was like, okay, so like if we build this, if we start by doing this and by doing this, then we can actually get these parts and put them together. And literally, if you look here, this was the first thing we started building. We started taking pieces of wood, chopping them, like marking them before we chop them, actually drawing them, seeing how they might look like and everything like this. And this, for example, required like different pieces of wood that we had to go and order for, and the one above as well. So it was kind of like one of those, what are we trying to do, and the methodology and how to understand how to do, how to understand the process it might take in order for it to become complete. Yes. So I remember the first hour I was just like looking there, kind of like going, "Oh my God, like no, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I don't fucking care because it's wood, right? Like uh, if you fuck, well, there are safety measures that I had to like that he made me go through first because we were using electrical tools. So like I didn't mean to belittle anyone. I full respect for anyone who does anything. I don't fucking care. As long as you do something and you kind of like love it, full respect. There is nothing. But like for me, I just there was a certain kind of like space in between like writing, building a website because that's how it started looking to me after that day. Because I was building a table back then or a desk or I don't know what you would call something like this. And then like throughout the day, my mind was kind of always like, okay, if we do this, then we're able to do this, and if we do this, we're able to do this. And the whole structure and architecture of websites changed completely in my head. Simply because when it comes to like writing code, you can write code, it's fine. But when you're writing code, you're kind of like writing code that does something, and you're building on top of that code, or building next to that code, or building around that code, depending on the connection that you want, in order for you to get an end result of some sort, which is basically a functioning website, a functioning program slash platform, an AI module, all these kinds of things are just basically what we are actually like building. So that day, I remember it's just like the minuscule things where we kind of like we agree on something because for some reason it makes sense. And every time we're coming to actually make the cut in the wood, we either instinctively stop and reflect because our mind is seeing something as not necessarily like in the right place. It's kind of like looking at something and it's like something is off. And keep in mind, like me and him were working. Normally he works by himself, so he makes decisions and he follows through. But now working with me is kind of like an extra effort from his side to get out of himself. And I think I did good because anytime I want to approach anything, I'd always ask him a question. And anytime he try to say something to me or explain something to me I don't understand, I ask him more questions about it. So it's trying to be very much like, talk to me. Whatever it is, talk to me. Let's have this be one of those moments where both of us are kind of like understanding a certain flow, engaging with something, and like growing beyond who we are. And it was fun because it's just the iteration process. And the first thing we did was started basically getting the pieces of wood that need to be chopped. We did the measurements. I remember we actually did a chart on the actual table in order for us to kind of like lay the wood on them and see how they might look like. And then we kind of like, based on that, we took measurements. And when the time came for us to start cutting, we kind of like, we did sample ones to see how sharp our cut is. We measured angles. So it was generally just very much, we're testing everything, even though he had the experience and he's been doing it for 3 years. But it's a project by project basis. So like having experience cutting wood is different than having experience building a project or like designing the methodology and how the actual project will be taken in order for the end result to be achieved. And it's styles. It's genuinely styles. Like for me, because I thought this part, the actual white part, should be done first and everything comes around it. But for him, that's the thing that he wanted to do last. And I just like didn't really understand why. We went with his idea because he has more experience. But I was like, maybe I'm wrong. But by the end of it, I realized that we could have done it my way. We could have done it any fucking way we wanted. There is no one way to do anything. But ultimately, you kind of have to like be able to build the process that makes it a successful one. And my way I don't want to say had more risk in it, but a lot more things could have went wrong simply because what we'll be doing is we'll be putting a lot more pressure on this part. And if it breaks, we have to go buy new wood. And it's actually like the centerpiece, so we can't fuck with it. So what we agreed was to put pressure on the outside part. And if that works, then this part fits right in. And so it's just beautiful, the build process of anything. Because you always have something in mind, but as you're doing things in front of you, that vision alters a bit or changes. And sometimes you look at yourself, and especially like when it comes to programming, because everything's abstract, it's not a physical thing. So what happens is like you kind of have a vision and you take a step forward. And it's the same with anything you do in this world. Because ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to connect what's in your mind and make it a part of the actual like shared reality, right? It is a part of your reality. It's just not physically documented on this world, on this earth, on this like land, on this reality that we share with people. Like if I have an idea in my head or a vision, it's already existent within my realm. But if I don't speak about it, the other person can't actually understand me. But to reach 100 people, I can't speak about it to 100 people unless the idea is literally just a thought process. I have to start building something for people to be able to see and reference, right? Although I do get better the more I explain it, but still, like you get the idea. You actually have to like find something that people could look at with you and like tangibly see with you or use with you in order for the end result to actually like be compatible with the world. But ultimately, the minute you have a vision, it's there. But you have to translate it. You have to articulate it. You have to express it. And this was one of those experiences where it changed how I actually like approached the structure, or at the very least, let's just look at it this way. I realized that the minute your vision, whatever you're trying to do as you're coming closer to it, The minute it changes is an opportunity for you to realize if it's changing in the positive direction or negative direction. No positive or negative. If it's changing in a way that better benefits what you're trying to achieve out of it, or the purpose behind it, or in a direction that doesn't really serve your values and principles. At the same time, it's an opportunity for you to look at what you did that started making it to skew in a different direction and basically assess bits and pieces of those in order to be able to like accommodate for new changes or potential changes or even like restructure the entire like process, because ultimately maybe you're missing something but you think you don't, you have it. And at one point I think we made the whole thing about around the assumption that some nails would work but they wouldn't work. And so we had to wait a full day in order to go and search for them. I remember I spent 2 hours searching for them because it was a Friday afternoon, so everyone basically was closed, and we were like, no. But ultimately, like, you know, the last thing we would want is to assume, because basically that's an arrogant approach. And the build process is literally just anything. It's just one of those like unique times where you're able to access your true self and kind of play between a bit of anxiety because you're only looking at your vision and a bit of boredom because you're only looking at what you did. And somewhere in between, the magic happens. Peace. It's a video.